Watch this.
Ahead on your Friday edition of the 208, getting a feel for the pulse of Idaho. Idaho's Public Policy Survey is out, and we're looking at what Idahoans think the big issues are here in the Gem State. Speaking of big issues, we're taking a look at the week that was at the legislature. Clarifications on Idaho's abortion laws, restrictions on who can testify, and militias parading in the city streets rounded out just some of the big headlines of the week. We're talking about it with your comments. And in this week's 208 Redial, Bogus Basin has been around just over 80 years. It's seen a number of changes in that time, but one thing has stayed the same: its name. But one skier wanted to change it to something a little less bogus. Happy Friday, you made it through the week. We are so happy you're with us here on Friday at 5 o'clock. So let's dive into this. What do you at home, what do Idahoans think about major policies and debates across our beautiful state? Well, that is the question that Boise State School of Public Policy aimed to answer in their 8th year of the Public Policy Survey. From November 10th to the 17th of this past fall, 1,000 adults that live in the state of Idaho were surveyed on a collection of focused questions aimed at giving an accurate picture statewide on views and beliefs on things like education, the economy, progress as a state, and the outlook into the future. Before we get to the results, though, I think the methodology of this survey is very, very important. So before we dive into any of this, here's an explainer on the survey from Dr. Matthew May. He's the Survey Research Director of the School of Public Service at Boise State.
It is a representative sample of the entire state, 1,000 Idaho adults, and our margin of error is plus minus 3%. That means we can be fairly confident that if you asked everybody in the state the exact same question, the overall answer would have been within 3 points plus or minus what our survey says.
Okay, so now you know what we're talking about here in terms of the survey, and we're going to link to the full report on our website. But here are just a few takeaways for you. And the number one key finding, and I hate to tell you this, there is increased pessimism amongst Idahoans in terms of the direction of the state of Idaho. Dr. May explains.
I think the thing that was most surprising to us about the survey was the rising concern that we're seeing among Idahoans for what the future may look like. For the first time in our 8 years history of the survey, we've seen the question right direction versus wrong track fall within the margin of error in terms of the gap between those two positions. Meaning that is more or less statistically tied. We are seeing less optimism, more concern about what economic conditions in Idaho may look like in the future, and a sizable portion of Idahoans are saying that they are concerned about meeting their monthly expenses each month.
So if you're an Idahoan that feels that way, now you know you're not alone. Now, a lot of attention on the Idaho Legislature on this program here on the 208. So let's talk about what Idahoans want to see out of lawmakers. Question was asked, rank the issues that you want Idaho lawmakers to tackle, and the list shakes out like this. 72% wanted to see education as the top priority for lawmakers. Good news, it seems like it is. Second, jobs in the economy. Third, housing. Fourth, healthcare, and fifth, taxes. There at the bottom you can see transportation, which I thought was an interesting note. But education is the top priority that Idahoans want lawmakers to talk about. So let's dig a little deeper here. The survey asked an open-ended question about what the top priority for public K-12 education should be. Here are the results. About 24% of respondents say that academics is the most important thing when you talk about K-12 public education. 17% said teacher support, and 13% said academic quality. In case you were wondering, concerns about classroom content, things like the conversation around critical race theory, that came in at about 10% with some other factors added in. I think it was actually 6% exactly concerns about critical race theory in the classroom. All right, how about another major conversation we've had here on the 208? Property taxes across the state of Idaho. Do you feel like there's an issue? Well, an increased amount of response from previous years indicates that almost 56% of Idahoans think that property taxes are too high. But believe it or not, 32% say that they're about right, and you can see about 2% think that property taxes are too low. Interesting response there. Now, property taxes can be correlated to growth in areas across Idaho. Survey question, what would you say the state of Idaho is growing too fast, too slow, or about right? 67% of respondents say that growth is too fast. Only about 23% say that they think it's about right. Another interesting finding in the survey, thoughts on getting rid of the sales tax on groceries. And this has been a legislative conversation for many, many years. We have yet to actually see something get to the governor's desk. But to be clear here on what we're talking about the grocery tax, removing it, it would only apply on food items like fruits and veggies, meat, bread, dairy, not anything you would find inside of a grocery store. So, do Idahoans want to get rid of the grocery tax? Here's your answer. 82% of those surveyed across Idaho favor the idea of eliminating the grocery tax. 60% strongly favor the policy idea. About 22% somewhat favor it. And this is across all political spectrums, by the way, but it seems like Idahoans on both sides of the aisle are right in the middle. They have a strong message on that policy discussion. We'll see if the legislature does anything with it this session. Now, these are just some of the findings for you, but a big question you may have: why are we talking about this? Why does Boise State even bother with this? Well, it's about informing lawmakers and the public about big conversations.
We do this survey every year because we think it's important that policymakers and decision makers and leaders throughout the state know what Idahoans think in general, and we try to just provide information on a range of policy issues that are likely to come before them each legislative session, so that they can fold it into their calculus or not, so that they can use it to aid their decision-making processes.
So there you go. We'll have the full survey in a link on our website if you want to dive into more. There's a lot of different things. It gets into the economy, education, all kinds of interesting insight. Great work over at the Public School of Safety, or excuse me, Public Policy at Boise State. Remember the calm of week one at the Idaho State Legislature? Everyone just getting in and it was all kind of exciting. Well, week two was not calm at all. Let's take a look.
It's kind of auspicious that today is Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and his purpose was, and he spent 13 years advancing the civil rights of people based on certain characteristics. And this does the same thing. It seeks to advance civil rights based on certain characteristics. Right now, we do not have equal protection in the law based on the alleged circumstances of conception.
On Monday, freshman Senator Scott Herndon introduced a resolution to remove the exceptions of rape and incest from Idaho's abortion laws. His purpose, to offer equal protection under the law for all those, including those in utero. Ultimately, following heated debate, the proposed idea, is returned to Senator Herndon and will not see a hearing this session. That specific RS. There is a chance, though, that we could see another version of the bill soon. Many conversations still to come. On Wednesday, Republican Representative Bruce Skog pitched an idea, and it got a full committee hearing with public testimony. Long story short for you, the bill would see cities who put out a policy of not enforcing Idaho's criminal abortion laws, well, they would lose out on their tax dollars. The bill is in reference to situations like in the city of Boise. If you missed this, last year, the city of Boise, they put out a policy that basically says that they won't prioritize using city resources to investigate claims of illegal abortion. Now, if this law does pass and become law, Boise, for example, would be forced to rescind that policy within 180 days, or they would have their tax dollars withheld by the State Tax Commission. Legislation passed committee. It now goes to the full House. We're watching that one next week. Also on Wednesday, Senator Dan Foreman introduced a measure to see a section of Idaho code that deals with militias parading in public with weapons repealed. You're looking at it right there. Idaho Code Section 46802. They say restricts First and Second Amendment rights to gather as a group in public and to carry guns. The current Idaho Code makes it illegal for, quote, a body of men to associate together as a military company or organization or parade in public with firearms in any city or town of the state unless they're called into service of the state. Also of note, though, there is no real enforcement mechanism in the law. To be clear, though, there are other parts of Idaho law that cover militias and concerns of terrorism, namely Idaho Code 18-8103 and the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 12. The legislation was introduced. It'll soon get a full committee hearing with public testimony. We're planning on bringing that to you.
Unique to this committee is that we will not take testimony from anyone under the age of 18 years of age, except by invitation of the chair. So maybe it's the class president or something of a high school. And there's reasons for that, and you can ask me about that at a later time.
Oh, this made headlines and social media chatter this week. A rule change in the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee over in the House stirred up negative reaction. Chairman Bruce Skog made a new rule in his committee restricting public testimony from people under the age of 18 in that particular committee. Now, the limitation sparked outcry from a number of groups. Politically active students pushed back, like Boise High School senior Simon Richardson, who said he believes the rule is unfair.
The decisions made in the Idaho Legislature impact all of us. And as someone who works and pays taxes and, is old enough to maturely go in and testify, I feel like my voice should be heard too.
Chairman Skog says that this is not a complete ban, and he encourages people under the age of 18 to reach out if they are passionate about an issue, write letters to his committee, and share their thoughts. To read or watch all of our legislative coverage, you can head over to our website, ktvb.com. And we are already looking ahead to next week, just in case you're wondering what conversations in the big building downtown could look like. Already on the table, proposed legislation set to be heard on Monday in the Senate Judiciary and Rules Committee dealing with marriage licenses and limiting marriage between a man and a woman here in the state of Idaho. We'll be sure to follow that conversation closely. And here's your reminder that we're not just on your TV. Oh no, we're all over social networks too, so you can connect with us after hours. Send us a comment, send us a chat. We'd love to hear from you. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're everywhere. Feel free to send us an email, or you can even leave us a voicemail, same number you text to, because we love hearing from you and we know how much you guys like to hear the voicemails. And if you miss any of our 208 shows, or maybe you want to share something with a relative or a friend, maybe you want to settle a debate, well, they are all available at KTVB's YouTube page. Well, we got a big show for you coming up this week on Sunday morning. This week's taping of Viewpoint with Doug Petcash features Governor Brad Little. And Doug and the governor spoke about a number of topics, and one major topic, education in Idaho. In his State of the State address, Governor Little proposed a one-time scholarship program to the legislature that would allot $8,500 to qualifying high school seniors, designed to help push more students into post-secondary education. Little shared the excitement educators and the businesses are sharing about his proposal.
We were talking about it. I said, do you think having these kids that wouldn't have had resources, their parents didn't have money, do you think having that program there will make them work harder the last 3 or 4 years of school so they're prepared to go on? And those teachers said, absolutely. It'll make a difference. It'll make a difference about how effective our K-12 system is. And then I was with a group of manufacturers yesterday, and they are really excited about it because the skills they need for modern manufacturing are just way different than they were in the past. I mean, it's gonna continue to create economic prosperity all over the state.
And I actually think we're going to get our first look at that legislation on Monday in committee. We'll update you when that becomes available. But on Viewpoint, Governor Little also discusses his other legislative and budget priorities for the session of the legislature, including property tax relief, public safety, and the fight against the dangerous drug fentanyl. You can watch Doug's full interview Sunday morning right here 9 o'clock on KTVB. Chief Meteorologist Rick Lance joins us now. Rick, hello. How you doing, man? It's chilly out there. When's it going to warm up? Or are we? I mean, it is winter. I get that.
Yeah, that's the roughest question. You know, you could have asked about snow. You could say, how cold is it? I could answer all that. It's going to be a while. We've just cooled down, and we're not changing much. And you look at the snow outside. I'll tell you this one positive thing. We've gained about a half an hour of that is sunshine, or that is daylight, I should say. About a half an hour daylight. Let me do it again. I just can't seem to stop on that word. As you see, at the beginning of January, we had a sunset around 5:10. Now we're about 5:39. So we're able to take this picture. Now, a while back, we weren't able to do so much on that because it was dark already. So we are getting a little bit extra time on that. The temperature this morning, though, if you notice this and got up, if you went outside, I know you noticed this. The temperature was down to 13 degrees. It was 15 at Twin Falls. Yeah, the forecast low was 18. It dropped well below that. And then when you take a look at the highs today, how could it rebound to that type of temperature, right? 32 degrees for the high. Many of the high temperatures were in the 30s or the upper 20s. And notice the wind chill in Twin, 17, 20 in Mountain Home. If you go outside right now, feels like 20 degrees. Now, there's a storm system for the weekend, so I just want to prepare you for that. Tomorrow's a sunny day. It's cool, so those breezes will keep the wind chills into the 20s. This is what happens around 10, 11 to midnight tomorrow night. As you see, some of these clouds are starting to move in with some of the snow around the area, and then it kind of breaks up just shortly after that. Not really anticipating a lot in the way of snow showers that will come in with this. It's mainly a skiff, maybe a half an inch in spots. And even in the mountains, we're about 1 to 2 inches. We have this gigantic high pressure over the northwest. So something we have to watch about that right now is that as these storms come in, they weaken. used to, like in December. As you recall, those storms would come in. We'd be talking 5, 10 inches, 15 inches of snow for the mountains. These storms are weakening now, and that seems to be the process of what we're going to be seeing as we move on into next week, which just leaves us with dry conditions and cold, which you're going to see here in the 7-day forecast. Now, here's late Saturday night. There's that chance of snow. The snow will be gone by the time you get up, no matter how early you get up on Sunday, and especially if you sleep in. You'll see there's a 50% chance, but it's like 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And then after that, it starts to, you could see throughout the day, we still have the cold temperatures for next week. And I've been watching this even past next Friday and even into the beginning of the following week. And most of these temperatures stay about the same. If anything, we might see a little flurry here and there, maybe some light snow in the mountains that, adds up, but only an inch to a couple of inches of snow with most of those storms that are starting to push in right now. So we'll keep an idea on that. Remember, last year was very helpful when we got into the spring months. We got all that rain. But of course, what's really helpful this year is all the snow that we had in November and December, and even, November, December. Let's just leave it at that, Joe, okay? And everyone have a good weekend.
All right, thanks, Rick, and I love your tie today. Absolutely spectacular. Rick's the best dressed guy in the valley. I just want to say that. All right, anyways, what's in a name? For Boise's nearest ski resort, as you may know, a lot. Bogus Basin just recently celebrated its 80th anniversary. The resort opened in 1942, according to Bogus Basin's website, and they are now the largest nonprofit ski area in the entire country. Also, to mention, they have been making their own snow for the last few years. But back in the late 1990s, there was one man looking to give Bogus a less bogus new name. Today's 208 Redial, John Miller went to the mountain to see if the name change would be welcome.
It's not that Jeffrey Jensen hates the name Bogus Basin.
I think it's mostly, I feel that it's not a good name for the resort.
So he wrote a letter to the statesman suggesting we rename Bogus Basin to what?
Deer Point, Doe Point, that sounds good to me.
Doe Point, that doesn't sound too good.
I think we better keep it a Bogus Basin.
Bogus Basin is Boise.
It's been Boise for 50 years, during those cruising 50s, right up through those cheesy 70s. The music was bogus, the fashion was bogus, and the skiing was bogus, just as it is today. Director of Skier Services Eric Stegmeyer agrees we could call it something like Deer Point
or Doe Point, but it really sort of takes the flavor out of it.
The flavor of the Old West, the legend of Jughead Jake and Panhandle Pete, who discovered gold in the area back in 1860, although it turned out to be fool's gold, or bogus. Still, the two prospectors took their phony riches to Boise, where they whooped it up before disappearing back into the basin. Those days are long gone, but the legend lives on.
Gosh, I know that people go, oh God, that's bogus, but bogus means something to us.
Oh, Bogus Basin, Boise, all the B's, 3 B's, hey, can't get any better than that.
Sounds like a good name to me.
It's totally bogus, and we love it.
Even if Jeffrey Jensen doesn't.
I just feel that it's an injustice to what a nice place that it is.
Jeff, come on, get with it, huh? Hey, Bogus Basin, whatever it's called, is beautiful up here.
And if it was bogus enough in the 70s, it's gotta be bogus enough now.
I mean, we're talking bogus.
It's part of us.
John Miller, Idaho's News Channel 7.
Well, the name stuck, clearly, and in the last few years, Bogus Basin has added a few new amenities, like the new High Peak Hangout on the third floor of the Pioneer Lodge, the Winter Terrain Park, and many summer activities like the Mountain Coaster. You got to check it out. And if you're looking for some pristine skiing or boarding conditions, Bogus has 6 new inches of snow in the last 2 days and only light winds, so maybe see you up there. All right, we're going to get to some of your comments. Some of these are from today. Some of these are from earlier in the week. So just so you know, when you send in comments, could use them on a later day. Roll the Tron. Here we go. 208. Will the House Rules Committee be checking ID of those wanting to testify to assure they are not underage? That is a great question. I actually don't know how that's going to work out, so I will ask, but it'll be interesting to see if somebody gets up there to testify and they say, can I see your ID? Could be interesting. We'll find out next week. Next comment. This person says, if we get rid of the grocery tax, we will be helping all the low-income people every time they buy groceries. This means a little more money to buy food that has gone up in cost throughout the years. That is from Connie. Yeah, Connie, I guess part of the 80% that answered on the public policy survey from Boise State that'd like to see the grocery tax repealed in Idaho. This person says, we're solving the non-problems of false reporting of child abuse in state agencies, not really supporting pride events. Any word on property tax relief, which is a problem? Anything? Hello, hello, hello. That's from Rob in Boise. Kind of talking about some of the frustrations I've heard from Idahoans. They say that they want to see more of the nuts and bolts issues, not the culture wars. Not just a few of the opinions we're seeing here today. This person says, legislature off to a great start, so important to make sure that there is an anti-smoking health and welfare booth at Pride event. No concern for property tax relief. Yep, similar comment there. And I just want to send you home. One more, I got to skip. Here we go. This is Hocus Pocus, and I'm told she watches every 208. So, hi Hocus, have a good weekend.